So this is a Clean and Sober Chat podcast. My name is Devin. So I've been procrastinating a little bit on this, and finally I pulled the trigger on some things and decided to go ahead and do this. So I don't know. I've never done a podcast before, and I think I was going to try and get into it. This is where addicts talk to addicts about real life scenarios and real life situations of things that they've had to deal with throughout their uh, clean time and things like that. So um, they don't have to struggle alone. Okay. Um, I will be having guests on this podcast. I will be having uh, poss- possibly multiple guests on this podcast, but this is going to be part of um, getting the word out to more people about recovery and keeping those people will help keeping those people clean by hearing people with substantial amounts of clean time, people with uh, degrees and stuff like that in psychology and things like that. So hopefully I'll have some experts on and things like that over the few podcasts that I'm doing. And but the main thing is that I'm just trying to get the word out. Now for me, a little bit of backstory on me. I grew up most of my childhood was not great. I had plenty of bad times. Had a few good times in there. It's not all bad. But it was a struggle for me growing up, right? I grew up hard, grew up tough, but I always felt like I wasn't worth anything. I was raised to kind of hate myself in a way, and I couldn't get past that for a long time. I grew up early. I was on a job site at a young age, doing commercial construction. So going into that at a young age, from the time I was about 14 years old on, I was on a job site. Was homeschooled through high school, stuff like that. So that part of my life, I really had a misunderstanding of what it meant to be a man, what it meant to be a person growing up in that type of environment, how to be able to even live properly. I was always around drugs and alcohol. That was the way everybody stayed, either in shape, get to the end of the day, everything to do at the end of the day. It was always something. So that being said, um, I learned really quickly on how to do the opposite of that. Right, I learned how to become not a very good member of society. Okay, and I went down some very bad paths. Okay, and I didn't have much of a role model of what it meant to be a good person, I guess, especially on a daily basis, because a lot of the iron workers that I grew up with all had problems. And if you were going to be an iron worker, you had to have a prerequisite of some kind. You either had to be divorced, have a drug problem, have an alcohol problem. I mean, those were the standards. Your parents couldn't be married. You know what I mean? But those were the standards, right? Those were the different things that we had to do. And so growing up like that, I learned early on how to drink and how to use drugs and things like that. And I was off and on. I rode the fence, started smoking early and things like that. But um, part of that was I was trying to get somebody to pay attention to me. That's all it was. I really wanted somebody to pay attention to me. I didn't care at what it cost, right? I didn't care about anybody else. I had no idea how to live a real life. I didn't even, all the way up until I was 20 years old, I didn't even know how to pay a electric bill. Nobody taught me that stuff. I was too busy trying to stroke my own ego and my own ego becoming dominant in my own life to be godlike almost to a point to where I was solely in control 100%. I didn't have a clue on what I was doing at all. So, I met a couple of girls here and there, got into sex at a young age. Then I met my ex fiance, and I kind of, I was already in doing drugs and things like that. And, my ex fiance, she was a good lady at the time, and then she got around myself, but I can't put that on myself, for her drug use and stuff like that either. But I did get in the way of that, right? So one of the things that I did coming in to recovery was I wanted to make the amends, right? I wanted to try and get this crap off of me after all these years. And but it was a slow process. And I adopted a 12-step program in my life that worked really well for me. I've been clean 2 years now. Um, and I wanted to start this podcast to help um, carry the message, to the still suffering addict. And I know there's a lot of stuff out there, and there's a lot of people out there that coming into recovery that have this, um, I don't know, they have this skewed, cynical mindset about recovery and how it affects people's lives. And so it's people stray away from it a lot. And I think that the way um, it's presented, especially in today's time when everything is all about how you feel. I have to feel good. I have to feel like this, and the only way you can do that, everybody is drinking nowadays. And that seems to be the only way that anybody, or you can be cool. That's the only way you can be cool, or you can get around people, is because you got to drink or do drugs. And I didn't like drugs. Actually, I did like drugs. Drugs were my way out. I love drugs, and that was my thing. And they were a way to help me completely escape reality. And I never had to have any type of responsibility or anything. So by doing that, I completely alienated myself from the world. And I had to, uh, and I used that. They were my relief in some way. They were the solution. Drugs were the solution for a long time. Not understanding that my problem was within, and I needed to look at myself and become a better version of myself, and actually do the right thing. So by not doing that, I completely separated myself from my family and blamed everybody. And it got to the point, growing when I left home, I completely blamed my family for everything. I blamed everybody for everything anyway. And I completely went round and round with myself and just doing my own thing to the point to where I wound up homeless, completely homeless, and living on the street. And I was fine with that. At some point, I had to become fine with that and just accept that this was the new norm. And it got to a point to where I couldn't buy drugs, and I was still do drinking and stuff, kind of heavy. But then I got to the point to where I couldn't buy that, and it got rough because I alienated and eliminated every single friend, connection, um, every building. I mean, I even got kicked out of homeless camps, man. Like they didn't even want me there. And it came to a point in my life at that moment that somebody pointed out that I'm going to have to make a decision here. You're either going to be on the street the rest of your life, or I'm going to have to, if I want to be anything. And I was 21 years old, and I was still working here and there. I would go to a day labor service and sleep outside the day labor service early in the morning so I get to pick at the first job. And I found myself doing that, and people were astonished at my work ethic because my work ethic was so strong because it was built in at such a young age to go to work and do the thing. You know what I mean? That there were points in my life where I would bust a drug test, and they were like, "Hey, we can't lose you. Just fix it." You know what I mean? And they're like, fix it. Don't bust hot no more. And it wasn't like, hey, you're done, you're out of here, uh, because they didn't want to lose me. And so I went to a guy's house during this time when I was working at the day labor service, and we dug a swimming pool in this guy's backyard. A swimming pool, yeah, by hand, because he couldn't get machinery in his backyard or something like that. They wouldn't allow him to have powered machinery. So he hired some day laborers. And he hired two day laborers, me and this other gentleman, and we went over there and dug this pool in his backyard. But the cool thing was he was down there with one of those tillers, you know, those little D.R. Horton land hand tillers or whatever they were, little gas powered hand tillers. Those things were kind of cool. But anyway, he was down there with us, you know, and we were just shoveling dirt out all day. And in 2 days, we dug this guy's swimming pool, man. 2 10-hour days. He threw us some extra money and stuff. And he asked me if I wanted to take this TV home. He's like, "Hey, I got this TV in the garage in there, and I can't use it no more. You want to take it home?" And I was like, "Nah, man, I'm homeless, bro. I can't." And the dude just like freaked out. He was like, "Why? Why are you?" And it struck me. It's like, "Why am I homeless? Like, what are you talking about?" It's like, "Why are you homeless?" He said, "You work harder than anybody I've ever seen. There's no reason you should be homeless." And I was like, "Oh man," I started blaming people again, you know. I was like, "Oh, this didn't go right. That didn't go right." And he's like, "Look, man," he said, "as long as you keep blaming somebody for your crap, because how old are you?" I was like, "I'm 20, 21 years old." He's like, "Yeah, we're way past that, dude." He's like, "If you keep blaming other people for your stuff, you ain't never gonna get off the street, dude." And so that kind of hit me in a way. I was like, "Okay, so yeah, you're right. Um, if I keep blaming myself, I'm probably gonna be stuck here." I mean, if I keep blaming other people, sorry. If I keep blaming other people for my mistakes and don't actually take some responsibility here, I'm just going to be stuck. And so I sat there all night long, just completely like revelated in a way that there's something inside of me started coming alive. You know what I mean? It's like God spoke to me instantly at that point through that man and was like, "Hey, you need to get your stuff together." So it was a couple of months, and I finally called my mother on the phone, and I was done. You know, I was just so I was almost completely hopeless. I had almost lost all hope at that point, and I was completely ready to surrender to something, and I didn't know what it was, but I was willing to surrender to whatever it was. So she came. It was my brother's checkup. See, he had a checkup because he had a kidney transplant and stuff. So she came by, and I rode in the back of the truck. She wouldn't even let me sit in the truck. I had to ride in the back of the truck. So I rode in the back of the truck from Dallas to Houston. It's about a 4 hour ride. I just rode, slept in the back of the truck, and then I slept outside on the porch. And then I was allowed in the house, you know, and stuff like that. But I was drinking real heavy again, you know, still. And then I met my wife during this 2 weeks after that I had gone down there. I met my wife. You know, she was my sister's friend, and I fell in love, man. And you know, I was just looking for another way out. Actually, in the beginning, I was just looking for another way out. You know, and you know, my sponsor today, he tells me he's like, if you get, you know, poised with the decision to either use or have sex, by all means have sex. You know what I mean? And so I didn't know it at the time, but you know, I was struggling. I had lost some kids to the state because of my drug use and things, and I had lost my ex fiance and stuff like that. And there was a lot of trauma in there, you know, a lot of trauma both ways. I wasn't. I was definitely not. I was a typical drug user at that point, you know, treated everybody like crap. But I met my wife, and we had uh, hit it off pretty good, you know, and then she turned around and I was drinking real heavy, and it was probably about 6 months into our relationship I'd asked her to marry me. And she's like, "Well, I'm not gonna marry an alcoholic." Okay, and I was like, "All right, cool." So I quit drinking. And it had only been, you know, 8 months since I quit using uh, drugs, and then I turned right around and uh, was drinking super heavy, and so I just quit, and I became dry, you know, and I was the hardest person to be around, period. I mean, I had hated what I had become because I was so consumed by my past, and I held so much resentment for all the people around me. It just completely imploded on me, and I had become so cynical of the world and so mad at everything, my situation. And then my wife got pregnant after we had gotten married. She got pregnant, and I didn't want to wait. I wanted to wait on that, you know, because I just lost two kids to the state and everything. And so that was another reason for me to build a resentment toward my wife. And I had gone um, for a long time with without drinking and using drugs, and it being I mean, we were kind of up and down. Year three of our marriage, we had some serious problems. And so we had gone to a couple of marriage conferences and things like that, and we had done that in a way to try and because we wouldn't give up on each other. We were going to make, but with whatever God puts together, no man can take apart. That was the truth in that in our marriage for sure, because there is no reason that we should even still be married with all the stuff that's gone on from year three to now for sure. And by statistics, she came from a broken home. I came from a broken home. Statistically, um, we shouldn't even be together. We both battled drug addiction. We both battled alcohol addiction. We both battled sexual abuse. We both battled all these things, physical abuse and stuff like that. We just all these things that we have battled on our own. We both brought so much baggage in to the marriage, and it's amazing that we have even made it one day, more or less 15 years. So in a way, we both kind of lean on each other because we kind of both understand each other and where each other's coming from. But it always ain't been that way. It always has not been that way. So one of the things that that we had to do was um, stop expecting, stop having unrealistic expectations of each other on what our roles were in the house as husband and wife, as mom and dad. You know, because there's so much outside input from other people and from social media and the internet in general that we can't even figure out what our roles are as husband and wife. One of the things that we learned really fast when we went to a marriage conference was, I didn't marry my mom and she didn't marry her dad. So the unrealistic expectations that we put on each other from that point of view, especially being young, because we had left those relationships with our parents and moved into each other to create this one, connection. So, if there's dirty dishes in the sink and it bothers me, but it don't bother her, then I need to do something about it. I can't expect her to do the dishes. You know what I mean? That's not her role. I'm supposed to pick up my slack because in marriage, anybody that tells you that marriage is 50-50 is full of crap. Okay? Because marriage is 100% and 100%. If you ain't giving 100% and they ain't giving 100%, guess what? It ain't gonna work. It's gonna be bad, right? So if I give 100% and she gives 60, I'm still giving 100%, right? No matter what, I don't drop mine down to 60 because she's giving 60. That's not how that works. But anyway, so getting off topic here. Anyway, so I I came back to Houston area and I had a little bit of law trouble and stuff like that. There was some bad checks and stuff. Went back to jail. Got out of jail. Did 2 years probation on jail. Got out of that. I didn't get out of it. Did just serve my time on that. Did several things. Tried to take back control of my life and my wife's life for a long time. I tried to control the whole household and not knowing how. Right. My thing was is my job is to go to work and that's it. There's nothing else. Like I go to work and you deal with the rest. That's my job. And I would do that for a long time. I would go to work, I would come home and I would expect dinner to be done. I would expect all this stuff to be completed or all these tasks and I would get upset when it didn't happen. So I started finding myself finding jobs out of town so I didn't have to come home and deal with the kids and the old lady. And that in itself was hard. And my wife still held on, still was the even though some days I wasn't, and most of the time, for the first 10 years of our marriage, I was not the spiritual leader of our household. Actually, up until the last 2 years, I would say I was not the spiritual leader of our household at all. Okay, and that's another thing. If you have an issue with God, go check out Jordan Peterson's explanation of God and where God fits in your life, because everybody has a God. Anyway, so going through marriage the way we were running 100 miles an hour in the wrong direction. And it only took one major instance to change everything about our entire marriage. And we were battling each other, but we were still there for each other. We were living together and we were staying together for the children, for the sake of the children. And then I started to be promiscuous and try to run out and find another relationship because I didn't like the way it was going. Everybody's getting divorced. I might as well get divorced too. That was my mindset. And I don't condone that whatsoever. I've made my amends. I've done my stuff. I've cleaned my side of the street. I've done that. But I'm not bragging about it or using it as a point. You know what I mean? I'm not putting it up. I'm not using it as a hey, look at me type thing. I'm not using it as gratification at any means. But I went, and we had our third child, Izzy, and she became that last, because we were on the verge. We had one thread left, and Izzy, our youngest, became that glue that held us together just a little bit longer. Just long enough so that a way we could get that 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 man, I don't even know how to explain it. It's that that one thing, you can't quit 5 minutes before you get to miracle. You know what I mean? It was that kind of thing. It was like we just needed just that little bit more until we got that miracle. You know what I mean? But we didn't, right? We didn't get that miracle. But it held us together a little bit longer. And then we had a major death in the family. My wife's uncle passed away, and it completely changed everything. For 6 years, I was dry, completely dry, the meanest person you ever wanted to see. I mean, I'd gotten in fights in the middle of the highway, in traffic with some person, you know, in a, as a matter of fact, it was a convertible. Anyway, so it was a dude in a convertible. I threw my drink out on him because he honked at me. So I threw my drink out the window into his car, and he got mad. We jumped out, and had a fight in the middle of the freeway in dead stop traffic. Good thing we didn't have video cameras like we do now. That would have been pretty. That would have been a major. Uh, that would have been a viral video for sure. But the whole thing coming up after that, after my wife's uncle passed, she decided she was going to have a drink, and she said, "Look, I'm gonna have a drink. You have a drink. Here, have a beer." So, and that started that. It brought that allergy back. You know what I mean? We started drinking. We started drinking every weekend, and then we started drinking every weekend plus a Monday, and then we started drinking every weekend plus Monday and a Thursday. And so on and so on until we were pretty much drinking every day. Within at least the first year, we was drinking every day, and you could see our progression as we in our jobs, in how we managed our money, how we related to the children, how we did all these things, and it completely changed our life. All right, and we got to the point to where we just didn't care anymore. And so we went, and after a few years, I had a pretty good job working in the union as iron worker. But that was another thing. Like as an iron worker, my whole identity was wrapped up in being an iron worker for a long time, up until a few years ago when I completely changed my career path, everything. When you come into recovery, they say you ask, "What's the one thing I got to change?" And the only thing you got to change is everything. And that's what I did. So I changed everything. A lot of people don't understand that concept when it comes to actually changing your career, because you got to get away from those. I've worked turnarounds and stuff like that. You got to get rid of that toxic situation, because when you're in that toxic situation, you don't see how easy it is when you start talking about and glorifying all that stuff you used to do and how you drink heavy and stuff like that. Like, why is it cool? I never understood why it was cool. I mean, we would have a pissing contest of who could be the drunkest. Like, I put more poison in my body. Like, really, who cares? But now I understand it. Then I was always the one upper. I had to have the worst or be the best. And I used my past that way too. I used my past as a shield because I would stand there and I would be like, "Well, I'm doing this because you don't know how hard I had it. You don't know. You don't understand, you know, what I've been through." And I would use that. I would use that as a shield and I would be like, "No." But then at the same time I would use it as a sword. I'd be like, "You know what I've been through? Huh? I can do this." But and I would use it as a sword. As it's crazy as it sounds, I could use that as manipulation in some way. And as long as I use that in manipulation, some way, form, or fashion, I could get over on you. I could figure out who you were. And then once I figured out who you were, I could become your friend and manipulate you out of some money or something. Okay? Well, anyway, so we're going along through this journey called life, and we get this wild hair. In 2016, we decided to buy a bar. Wasn't a great idea. So we bought this bar, local hometown bar, pretty good sized bar. Um, we bought this bar. Totally did not know anything about owning a business. Did not know anything about owning a bar. Did not know anything about running a bar. The only thing we knew how to do was drink and sit at the bar. That's it. So we had kind of a crash course. The previous owners, mm, well, I don't think they disclosed everything. They didn't disclose everything. But that's neither here nor there. I don't feel like we got a great deal on that. As a matter of fact, no, we didn't get a great deal. But anyway, by the time it was all said and done, we were drinking pretty heavy. We owned the bar. There was a lot of crazy stuff that goes on when you own a dive bar and stuff like that. Once you get into that whole facade of of life, you realize that there's a lot of people there that don't have any lives. You see them every day at the bar, every day, and you don't know. Like they have no clue on why they're there. They just know they got to show up there at 5 o'clock every day. And they have no lives outside of that bar. I mean, I was one of them. I was a bar. I was there all the time. Me and my wife both. And drinking every day. We'd stay there till close sometimes, and then get up, go to the house, take a shower, go to work. We were working in Beaumont, which was probably about hour and a half away from home. So we had to be in Beaumont at 7 o'clock. So we left the bar at 2 and got to the house by 2:30. Then that only left enough time because we had to leave the house by 5 in order to make it to Beaumont by 7. I always like to leave a little early. So, you know, the one thing about that bar was that it actually got to the point to where we started hating each other, man. Started hating the bar, started hating everybody in the whole damn town. You know, it was ridiculous. And I could run around on a daily basis and run into somebody I knew in the town because I was the bar guy, I was the bar owner. You know what I mean? And we still worked our full time job because we still dumped so much money into that bar because we couldn't not drink at the bar. We would wind up drinking our profit, and then we'd wind up having to stick more money back in the bar. And I don't recommend that. If you own a bar, make sure you don't drink. It's not a good idea. Or at least don't drink at your own bar. But we had a lot of problems, you know what I mean? So that's just the nature of the beast, man. And so as it progressed, we started having um, intimate relationships with other people in our marriage and things like that. And we started going down the I don't know. We started going down the path of most of the bar owners in that area, because drugs were also readily available anywhere in that bar. by at least half the patrons there, and and you couldn't catch them all. We'd run them out and stuff like that, but you couldn't catch them all. So um, as it progressed, it got worse and worse and worse, and then I was running out of money. The bar ran out of money. We had a hurricane come in, so I actually got some friends of mine come up and I asked them if they wanted to buy the bar, and I was in debt and everything else. I'm like, look, man, I'll just give you the bar, bro. Just take over the debt. As I will call it zero. You won't owe me anything. You figure out how. And he's like, all right, cool. So they come in and they kept us at a low percentage for the liquor license stuff, and everything was legit and all that stuff. And they come in and they kicked a bunch of people out. And but then that last year that we owned, that we didn't own the bar 100%. We had a discount. We come in there, me and my wife, and we were just massively, man, we were just drunks, man. We were alcoholics. We were way past alcoholic. We were just drunks, okay? And we would get to the point to where we had a 50% discount at the bar because and they gave us a 50% discount. We spent $45,000 on bar tabs that year. $45,000 on bar tabs that year. And we could not figure out why we didn't have no money because we were just that drunk all the time. And that was at a 50% discount. Anyway, so, oh man. Of course, we bought drinks for other people too. We put people on our tab and be like, yeah, they're with us. You know what I mean? We'll pay for their tab or whatever. They throw some money or whatever. But, we were just drunk people all the time, man. And so, the thing was, is that after we had sold the bar, we were there, and then we had a really good family member that was my wife's granny that was living with us at the time. She lived with us several years, excuse me. And she was watching the kids most of the time. My mother-in-law was watching the kids most of the time. I mean, we had younger kids, but we just always at the bar, man. Always do. I mean, we'd run to other bars and it was no way to be living, man. And I couldn't figure out for the life of me why I hated myself so bad. I wasn't, I was just in this funk. I didn't want to be where I was at. I didn't want to be anywhere. I hated my life, hated my job, but I went to work because it was good money. I hated everything about myself. And everything boiled up to a point to where when Granny passed away, none of us knew how to handle it. The only thing we knew was get drunk. That's it, you know? And so getting drunk was the main focus. And I don't know why. Because I hadn't dealt with all the stuff from my past and I just buried it all in there. I didn't deal with none of it. I expected everybody to just figure it out, you know. You don't know what I've been through, okay? Look at me. I was homeless, you know, 10 years ago, 13 years ago, whatever it was, 10 years ago. I was homeless 10 years ago, and I own a business now. So, but that was the thing. So, Granny passed away in August of 2018. And after that, um, we started using drugs, controlled substances, cocaine, stuff like that. We started using that. And then instantly went back to my DOC, which is meth, and instantly went back to the way I used to use it, which is IV. And that is one of the hardest things in the world for me at the time because I had been off of drugs for almost 13 years. But I was self medicating with alcohol. And I had outside issues. Yeah. So once it started, it progressed quickly. And our friends completely changed. The people we hung out with completely changed because the ones that were business minded, the ones that were successful, they all left. They stayed away from us, even though that was the people we hung out with. We hung out with the boat and crew and all that stuff. And um, once we fell off and started that direction, everything changed. All of our friends changed. Our relationships changed. I started doing stupid crap. I was going to work high, lost my job, and completely lost my job. Probably 6 months into 2019, and no, it was a little later than that. I guess it was October. It's probably October 2019. It was right before bonuses came out. I do remember that. So right before bonuses came out, so they had to pay us their bonus. You know what I mean? It's one of the things. Hey, big business is what it is. But I still never failed a drug test at any of those jobs for the union. I will say that. Now, when I left from that job, that was my last local union job in the South Texas area. I left that job and we went. Once we both lost that job, we were straight wilding out. I'm talking bad. And so we went downhill completely. So when we did that, we started getting into a lot of drugs, a lot of things like that. A lot of different people in our house, a lot of things going on, and it kept progressively getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And after that, uh, we went to um, we went outside. We basically our house turned into a trap house. Kids were there occasionally, and you know they were at grandma's house, but we had a good house. I had a good unemployment at the time, and it ain't even throwing in the good money yet. I had some money stacked up and things like that, and I didn't have to. I had cheap rent and stuff. I mean, it was great. 2019 was at that point was great. And going into 2020, early in 2020, February of 2020, I guess. No, it was probably January 2020. We started noticing things. We started noticing a lot of weird activities from people in our neighborhood that weren't from our neighborhood. We noticed that there's weird people jogging in odd hours of the day. You know, if you ever see somebody jogging in South Texas in a tracksuit, they're probably not used to being outside jogging because that's a little crazy, dude. Especially if you're in South Texas, dude. Like, come on. Even in the wintertime, it's hot. Okay. Nah, sometimes it does get cold for about a week. Anyway, that's one of the things that we noticed. We noticed that there was a lot of stuff going on. There was cops and stuff, and so we thought we were being watched, which we were. Uh, I brushed it off. I'm like, man, it's paranoid because we're doing drugs. You know what I mean? Just paranoid. It's just the drugs talking. So I went and we decided to go ahead and go meet a buddy of mine in Vegas. So we decided, hey, let's we'll load up the dope. With me and my wife. We're a soccer mom and soccer dad over here. Bar owner, soccer dad. 6 months, 8 months into this thing. And a little over a year into this thing, and we're freaking IV shooting dope and everything else. And we decide we're gonna load up. Okay, we're gonna load up this dope, and we're gonna load up these guns, and we're gonna go with no cell phone. We're gonna leave our cell phones at the house, and we're gonna leave Houston and drive to Vegas. And yeah, that was phew, that was crazy. Anyway, so we take off it takes us 3 days to get to Vegas from Houston, which is only about a 21-hour drive. But it takes us 3 days, and we wind up going through California. So that's how messed up we were, man. I thought I could figure out how to get to Vegas just by using the freeway, but there's certain ways you have to go. And taking I-10, you can't take I-10 and get to Vegas. You can, but you got to take a few roads. You got to hit 73 and go north eventually at some point. So anyway, so we went to Vegas and saw my buddy, man, and my buddy was like, he was my best friend, and he still is my best friend. It's one of the guys I could tell anything to. It doesn't matter what it is. He's 100% gonna be there for me. And it was another story. This dude come all the way down on Mother's Day, right before Mother's Day, from Vegas. He flew down because I was having a bad day. This is a true friend. You know what I mean? So I left and went up there to see him because I was at my wits' end. After we left, it was probably about a week later. The guy that I was originally my plug got busted, and uh, there was a lot of people that got busted at the same time, and they come through the neighborhood, but they didn't raid our house because we weren't there. And so they went, and I don't know if they were building a case or whatever. Maybe they're trying to catch us on some stuff or whatever, But we had a few acquaintances together and stuff like that. So we weren't listed on any indictments or nothing like that. They didn't have no repercussions that way. And we went to Vegas, saw him, and that dude seen me, and he's like, bro, you done, dude. Like, you out of there. You are out of there, bro. Seriously. And we stayed there for a couple of days at his spot because he was working in Vegas, and then it got to the point to where he's like, "Yo, y'all got to get out, bro. Y'all can't." He found some drug paraphernalia in his house, in his bed, and he's like, "Look, man, I hang out with you, whatever, but y'all can't stay here tonight. We're gonna figure something out." So we went down to the casino, got a night, a couple of nights at the hotel for free, and then left and went to another hotel. You know what I mean? We did the whole thing. But we gambled. We gambled some money. We're throwing money out there and was doing some gambling so that way we could get some free nights at the hotel. I tell you what, your mind is completely screwed up because I was constantly trying to replace something, right? Instead of changing myself and looking at myself as the problem, because there's a good saying, no matter where you go, there you are. And too many times I sat and tried to change everything around me, person, place, and thing, in relationships and everything else, and I never changed myself. You could change all the things in the world around you, but if you don't ever change yourself, you're always going to be the same. Everything around you will always eventually become the same because you're going to make it that way. Your subconscious is going to make it that way because the vision you have in your head is going to be what your subconscious makes you want to be. So I never looked at myself. I was running from something. I was running from myself. Couldn't stand myself. Finally, after about 2 weeks in Vegas, we decide we're going to get a divorce. It's over. It's completely over. And we decided that we would go just one more time. Just one more thing. Let's try this one more thing. We decided we were going to go to rehab together. And there's a couples rehab out in California we went to. I don't know if I can say it on this podcast. Anyway, we went to this great couples recovery, and there's a couple of people there that are really, um, that really helped us understand who we were. It helped us in a way that we could understand how to mitigate our life without drugs. And we sat there for 60 days. They wanted us to stay for 90, or, it was a big bougie rehab in California. Great place. Learned a lot about ourselves. But then we started building a case, because we started getting feelings and stuff right in the middle of the pandemic. It was March of 2020 when we went to rehab. March 1st of 2020. That was my first clean date. And of course, I don't have that clean date anymore. But March 1st of 2020, and then COVID, just the whole everything was crazy for the next 2 months, completely crazy. Okay, and but we learned a lot about ourselves, and we learned that we were spiritual beings having a human experience, and in that sense, I learned how to look at God as my higher power, as a God of my own understanding, right? And once I figured that out on on the level that it needed to be, that it could be broke down to where I can understand it, I was able to start realizing that I had zero control over anything in my life. None. Okay. And it doesn't matter. I have no control over anything in my life. Outside of my nose, I can control how I react and I can control what I say, okay, and how I respond to people, but I can't control anything outside of that. Can't control the weather, can't control my finances. Shoot, I still have trouble controlling my finances because I need to let go of control. So, that being said, we got out of rehab, we came back, we decided that we were going to go, man, went into this other group called Pathway to Peace, and my first sponsor there, he really helped me. And we started going through the steps, and we was in about 3 months, and we went on a vacation and relapsed. Because we went right around those same people, and we didn't change everything. And shortly after that, my wife's dad died. Um, Stepfather passed away. She was really close to. The same day we were leaving to go to move out of town. And of course, I called my sponsor and told him that I was moving. He was like, "All right, cool. Well, let's talk about this when y'all moving." I was like, "Well, I'm on my way right now. I'm leaving." So he's like, "Oh, well, appreciate you letting me know." So we left and we moved to Illinois. That's same year in 2020 here in COVID. We moved to Illinois, got a house up there, rent house and stuff. My wife's uncle lived up there. We had some stuff going on and uh moved in everything. Excuse me. Moved in everything. Went up there and stayed clean and sober for a little while. My wife, weed's illegal up there, and my wife started smoking that because she got pain, and she struggled a lot through our marriage with pill addiction, pain addiction, stuff like pain pill addiction, excuse me, and stuff like that. And that was one of the things that was hard on her, was being around weed all the time. So she started smoking weed and everything. I stayed clean the whole time, but I wasn't working a program. We were going to church and stuff and working the Celebrate Recovery program, but it just wasn't enough because there was no accountability there, I don't think. It didn't feel like there was enough accountability there for me. And I didn't have a sponsor, wasn't working no steps or anything. So we decided that after a year of being up there, and we relapsed again. I eventually relapsed, because I was around all the people. I was still an iron worker and I was still working iron and I was around all that stuff. And eventually we relapsed because I fell back into the identity of the picture in my mind, the identity of who I thought I was. And so coming now, after we moved back down here, I made a decision. I said, even if my wife doesn't stay clean, I'm going to stay clean. If she doesn't stay clean, then I can't be with her. And she struggled a lot. She adopted the program, and I worked the steps with my sponsor, and I put one foot in front of the other, and God changed me. My God changed me, okay, and made it to where I could understand, made it to where I could see that I was the problem and that drugs and alcohol were just my solution. Made it see that the wake of destruction that I had in my past was that's what it was. That's just what it is. It's the past. Past does not define who you are. It may have made me who I am today, but it doesn't define me at all because I'm not that person anymore. I'm not that same person that used to steal from his mother, that used to steal from um, grocery stores and convenience stores and Sonics. uh, I'm not that same person anymore. I'm not the same person that uh, wakes up every morning at 4 a.m. and goes to work, strap my boots up, and talk about drugs and alcohol all day, and f this and f that. Um, I'm not that person anymore at all. And so, over the last 2 years in recovery, I've learned how to love myself. I have learned how to love others. I have learned how to be selfless. I have learned how to be more giving and more accepting of what is given to me, right? I'm not the person I used to be. Once I got to a point in my life to where I realized that I could not control the things around me and I could not control my own life, that I needed to work on my own life before I could even come close to raising a child correctly, before I could even come close to being a good husband. That's one of the things. If you work on yourself 100% and you work on your relationship with God, all the other relationships around you will be easy. If you work on yourself, if you work on yourself, your marriage will be easy. If your spouse works on herself and you work on yourself, because love, that's what love is, right? Love will have you working. I heard that I can't remember where I heard that from. I think I heard it on a reel somewhere. Love will have you working, right? You will work yourself, and as long as you're willing to work on yourself, your relationship will be easy. Your relationship with your kids will be easy. Your relationship with your neighbors will be easy. Your relationship as a productive member of society will be easy. It will be way easy. As long as you're willing to work on yourself. But working on yourself is not easy. It wasn't easy for me to actually look at my own crap. It's hard. It's hard for me to sit back and say, okay, you messed up. You got to look in the mirror. Because sometimes the only person that you let down is the man in the mirror. And if you got to go in that mirror and you got to look at that man in the mirror and you have to let them know that you got to work on some stuff. I mean, that's all it is. Continually working on yourself. As long as you're willing to work on yourself, the entire world around you will become a better place. Too many times we're the weakest link in society at some point, And if you're the weakest link in society, the society's only as strong as its weakest link, right? And we're the weakest link if we're the weakest link in society, then we got to look at ourselves. And it takes other people pointing out, hey, you're the weakest link, you know? And if we're not willing to accept that uh, criticism, then what are we doing? We have to be able to accept that criticism and say, okay, well, yeah, you're right. I need to look at myself. Because that's all I did for my whole life was just run everything, just completely run it all in the ground. Every time I'd start getting a little bit above water, I would just completely self-sabotage that till I put myself right back down on the bottom. And to be honest, this is one of the first things that I've actually ever completely pushed through and gone through. And I'm telling you part of my story as the beginning part of this podcast because I'm trying to get a lot of people to understand that um, I have I have the past, right? I got the credentials, if you will, and we've all got the credentials. If you've been on drugs, you got the credentials. And I'm going to be looking over the next few weeks. I'm going to bring on a couple of guests. I have a really good guest that I'm going to bring on probably pretty soon. So we're getting at about an hour. I'm going to try and keep these podcasts to about an hour, maybe work up to some longer ones later. One of the things that um, if you have a problem with addiction, reach out, leave a comment, uh, reach out to Hotline. There's a hotline out there. I'll post a number on the bottom of the screen. Um, just reach out. If you're struggling, reach out. There is a better way to live. I promise. I've been there. Um, I've been to the bottom, and everybody's bottom's different, but I've been to the bottom. I've been to my bottom, and it's a scary place down there. That old saying, hey, where are you going? Well, uh, you're going to hell if you don't change your ways. Well, I've been there. Okay, I've been there. Got the T-shirt. came back out. Okay. Uh, that's one of those things that everybody's bottom's different, and it takes what it takes sometimes when you get there to understand that not everybody's bottom's the same. Sometimes we get into recovery when we put these people on a pedestal, and then they become self-righteous because they feel like they've accomplished something and their way works, so you need to listen to their way. And if you're not willing to listen to their way, then that's it, you know. So don't get discouraged by the common cliches or uh, the stereotypes that go on with the 12-step programs, or the stereotypes of people in recovery, or the stereotypes of um, of rehab and things like that. The main thing, if you struggle with alcohol and drugs, the first thing you need to do is get clean, right? The first thing you need to do. And if you can do that, then everything else is easy. All you got to do is stay clean just for just for today. And that's the main thing, man. And so anyway, so next podcast, wow, I shook the whole camera. Next podcast we're gonna do. I'm gonna try and get this audio up on my on this YouTube channel. I'm gonna try and upload this audio to YouTube podcast. I'm still working on how to figure all this out. Leave a comment below if you want to see something different in the background. I'm trying to get this thing. I need to give me a little sign or something put up there. But anyway, this is my first podcast, and this is the start of it. Feel free to comment whatever, because I'm used to it. Been online for a little while. I'm used to negative comments and things like that. Doesn't really bother me anymore. So you want to leave a nasty comment, leave a nasty comment, complain about it. Well, I don't care. Okay. Also, we got a few things also coming up on. I'm gonna try and get a TikTok page started. I think I'm gonna start a TikTok page for just the Clean and Sober Chat Recovery Podcast. Um, and I need to, yeah. So yeah, comment below what you if you want to guest or something. Maybe I can do a call-in guest or something like that. If you know somebody that you'd like to see on the podcast, let me know. I'm gonna leave my email. I'm gonna get an email going. That should be cleanandsoberchat@gmail.com. I think that's what it is. Yeah, cleanandsoberchat@gmail.com. Uh, reach out if you're struggling. Send me an email. I don't care. I'll get you hooked up. I got some numbers, got some people, man. Got some really good people, really cool people in recovery, man. My sponsor now is a really cool dude, got 30 plus years, and he's he's done the work. You know what I mean? And one of the most spiritual guys you ever meet. And but he's not too spiritual to talk to a newcomer. That's the main thing, right? You can talk to a newcomer. And the sole purpose of this podcast is to carry the message to the still suffering addict. And if you've watched this far or listened this far through this agonizing podcast, because I probably don't have the greatest voice, but I don't care. I'm going to get it out there. You know a little bit more about me, who I am, where I'm from, and where I'm at today. Today, got more gratitude than I could ever want. Um, I'm just grateful to be awake. As long as I wake up every day, sucking air, I'm doing great. And you can too. I mean, hey, that's the thing. I spent most of my life running and gunning, living in a false identity of what I thought life was. And today, I found a new way to live. So, this is the Clean and Sober Chat. It's Devin. Have a nice day.